even always under the surface of even some of the most serious conversations. And I would say that 85% of our conversations were, as Ruthie and Deirdre have referred to, I was always immersed in wanting to do things for humanitarian causes and very, very involved all his life. And we were both thoroughly pissed off with big, blinkered bureaucrats who messed up grassroots projects. So a lot of our conversations were angry, passionate, pissed off, but always, absolutely always, they would end with this big laugh of ours. And I was really pleased because I found a quote from the musician Quincy Jones that I think sums it up, and he said, "I've always felt that a big laugh is a really loud noise from the soul, saying, ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth?"
I'm Marcy, and here and I went to school with Ruth, so I've known him since I was 14. And she's asked me to say a few words about Al to remember him by, as if we could ever forget. Ruth, of course, has known Al forever and a day. They've been adventuring together for 24 years, overseas, in America and in England. I got to know him when he came to live and work here as the husband of my very dear friend. And when I sat down to think about him, I always saw him with Ruth. Al and Ruth, Ruth and Al. So this is a tribute to Al, it's right behind us, and to Al and Ruth. So, what was Al like? He was big, he was untidy, he lived with Ruth, and he loved her. He loved to talk and to eat and to play with his family and friends, and especially with Ruth. He loved politics, he read history, he devoured the news, and he and Ruth would spend hours talking about the world and everything within it. He was interested in religion and philosophy and big ideas, and he wrote and Googled and emailed and talked, and he saved his most insightful and most intimate thoughts for Ruth. He sailed and played guitar, and he read book after book, and he did everything with enthusiasm and great sort of gusto, and he liked doing everything best with Ruth. Ruthie was his greatest fan, his strongest supporter, his beloved wife. He simply adored her. They drove each other mad, they made each other laugh, and they loved each other through and through. We all know that about them, Al and Ruth. Al was a socialist and an admirer of the NHS. In recent years, he spent a lot of time admiring it up close and personal as he suffered from increasing ill health. But I think it's fair to say that many of the nurses and doctors who looked after Al admired him too, for his determination, his will, and his fights to keep going. He loved life, and he loved Ruth, and he didn't want to leave her. But in the end, despite Ruth's wonderful care, the hospital's many attempts at cure, and his own strength of will, he died in peace, with Ruth, as always, by his side. So it's my privilege to speak today in memory of a fine man who had a wicked sense of humour and a big heart. As family and friends, you'll have your memories of Al too. If you'd like to share your memories back at the house, that would be wonderful. But if, like Al, you like to save all the best things for Ruth, please talk quietly to her or write to her afterwards, because these memories of Al are precious to her.
Kind of service. We just started doing it, and we only do it 2 or 3 times a year. If it had been our usual morning event, I think Al might have listened with polite attention, and we would have never seen him again. But I remember this. There was no sermon that morning. There was hardly any of the usual ritual, but there was just this. There was a piece of text and a long, wholehearted, sometimes very heated community discussion. No one told anyone what to think, much less what to believe. This was our Jewish experience at its most real. There were lots of people in the room with lots of different opinions. And at the heart, the notion that it's actually in the struggle, in the argument, in the spaces between our different positions that we might find the truth. Al was taken aback. He was, in a very English way of speaking it, completely gobsmacked. He loved that it was real. And with his passion for and background in the theatre, he loved our sense of drama and story, with his instinctive pull towards metaphorical truth. And by that I mean finding your own truth by using your own intellectual capacity rather than dogmatic truth, and his respect for the mystical. He came back, and he kept on coming back. As his health declined, he managed somehow to keep going. He talked to me about his spiritual life. He conjured up the emotional high of the Baptist revivals and the dogmatic certainty of the Catholic Church, the tensions of faith inside his own childhood home. He had an instinctive distrust of religious conviction. And his many years of living in the Far East were not only important outlets for his passionate drive to mend the world, what we call in Hebrew, tikkun olam. They also brought him into contact with a gentle and open spirituality that is wrapped up in a way of life. But this Eastern spirituality wasn't enough. When his health declined in the last 12 years of his life, one of the things he did was to start a novel called Shadow Mirror. It was a winding mystery novel set in his childhood New Orleans that explored parallel planes of existence, the relationship of men and women, used motifs of voodoo, and even somehow had a Jewish thread. That Jewish thread led him to the synagogue, ostensibly for further research. But Al quickly found what he did not know his heart was looking for. Here in the synagogue, no one would tell him what he had to believe. But he was asked to learn, to practice, and to think. These three tasks were not without their challenges. He was always a willing student. He read voraciously, and he kept a list of questions to ask me. Yet it was difficult to marshal his thoughts. His wide-ranging intellect would leap nimbly from topic to topic, and it wasn't always easy to see where his thoughts would jump. His most common question, I can hear his voice now, was, "Rabbi, why?" His declining health made Jewish practice very, very difficult for him. Yet he came to synagogue whenever he could, and he made an impression on everyone who knew him. I think it was the last time that he came, he told the leader of our choir that when they sang, he felt the heavens open. He was very well loved. He was lovable, an honest man of strong convictions and character. I'm only sorry I never knew him at his physical best, but I knew him at the time when perhaps he was at his spiritual best. He struggled to the end for coherence and meaning, a struggle that we learn is actually never complete. Al told me once or twice, or asked me rather, what I thought about the biblical book of Job, as many people do when they're sick. Job is a character who refuses the quest for a set of easy answers. Job instead has to hold fast to his own hard-earned truth. Al was looking for this underlying truth, the unity or the oneness behind our different languages, our different cultures, and our different ritual expressions. He wanted to get to this ultimate truth, this essential, indivisible one. This was the drive behind every one of his free-ranging questions, his voracious reading, and his practice of Jewish meditation. And though it sounds so simple, finding that truth, holding on to it, is a complex and challenging struggle, and he gave it his best. the struggle too for the essential, undivisible one, in turn, sustain him. And so I say, Zichrono Livracha, may his memory be for a blessing. I'm now going to, in a couple of minutes, a moment, we're going to listen to Chopin's Nocturne Opus 62. During the music, I'd like you, please, to make your way to the front, where we're going to stand in a semicircle around here and where our lies. And I think we'd like to have Ruth on one side and Deirdre on the other, with all of us forming a semicircle. So as you please hear this music, please make